Hi, everyone, and welcome to Pit Stop number 7. Today, Nuke and I are going to talk about motivation. Nuke, how are you doing today?
I'm great, sir. How are you?
Very good, very good. Excited to talk about motivation because it's been something that's been on my mind a lot recently, especially. So, I guess the first thing being is, for you, do you consider yourself a motivated person?
You know what, dude? It definitely depends on the day,
Okay.
And if I'm being completely honest, dude, I would say, dude, not nine. Let's say more than 50% of the time, I need to like pep talk myself. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because I'll wake up and I'm like, I don't want to get out of bed. I'm tired. I'm da. Nobody cares. I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? So I
Yep.
would say, am I a motivated person? No. Do I
Okay.
get myself there? Yes, every single day. Which is why you'll always hear me say you have to be your own best cheerleader, right? Because
Yep.
if you're not doing that for yourself, you can't expect anybody else to do that for you.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. And while you were saying that, actually,
Mm.
kind of a question popped up in my mind of, what does it mean to be a motivated person? Does
Yeah,
that mean that you don't need to motivate yourself, or does that mean that you can motivate yourself?
totally, dude. And this is a great question. This is something that they talk about in sports psych when it comes to intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation, right?
Hmm.
And it's great and all when we can be actually I should backtrack and say what is intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic. And right away it just means, are you motivated internally, or does success, accomplishment, money, status, does that motivate you? Things outside of you, right?
Yeah.
And for the athlete, and so like when it comes to sports psych, and even just in general, I think for a lot of people, it's just figuring out what motivates you more and or more consistently, I guess would be my response. Because I think at the end of the day, we should all cultivate a great intrinsic motivation, right? Having habits, systems, routines that will get us to be inspired enough to go and do the work. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Whatever
Yeah.
that work is. And then a byproduct of that is the external what is it? Accomplishment, the external accolades and what have you. Because I think for a lot of us sometimes we create this false illusion around, chasing after these pursuits that are outside of us, which are noble and great. However, if that gets taken away from you, you know what I mean? That can be a very scary place to be for some people because your entire self-image can be wrapped up in that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Does that make
And
sense?
no, it makes a ton of sense. And it's a very fine line of kind of, what's a healthy motivation, what's an unhealthy motivation. And
Mm.
when I think about it almost doesn't necessarily matter, the exact thing that is motivating you. For me, I
Mm.
think the more important thing is why is that motivating you,
For sure. Great
right?
question.
And I mean that's a lot of, kind of along the lines of a lot of things that you and I talk about. But is it, yeah, is it, being motivated so that others looking up to you could be a positive or a negative thing, right? It
Mm-hmm.
could be a positive thing, if you, for instance, want to just be, the best person that you can be. And so having that, just you wanting to be a good person is the motivation. Now,
Yep.
if you want people to look up to you because you have, a bad self-image of yourself, then that, it can turn into an unhealthy motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one thing that I talked about, I think on episode 1 actually with Steve, but something that I have kind of gone back to and tried to embrace recently actually is the fact that it's okay to be selfish, to be selfless,
Yes.
right?
For
And
for a season, right?
Well, so what I mean by that, and definitely for a season, or even, like it's okay if, to be selfish in, I am going to work on myself almost exclusively to make myself a better person. But the selfless is, and that's the selfish part. But then the selfless part is that because I've done that work on myself, I'm now able to serve people better.
Yes.
Right.
All right.
So yes,
Well said.
it's an interesting balance, right? Of
Yes.
finding, finding the root of why, where those things are coming from.
Definitely. And I think also a huge part is going to be our relationship to why we do what we do, right? And whether or not, like when we were younger, our parents cultivated within us, this drive to want to pursue, like just the best in every area, right? Because we wanted to, not because, you're a good boy if you do it. You're a great athlete if you do it. You are the top of the student if you do it. You will be the coolest kid on the playground. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Versus doing it, versus pursuing greatness because you just want to strive for that internally.
Yeah.
And so I think that plays a lot then when we move into adulthood and pursuing why we pursue what we pursue. Am I doing this job for the money, the status, the accolades, those initials in front of my name, or am I doing this career because I know that this is going to impact the world? I know that this brings me joy and lets me know that I am an active contributing member of society.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you can make that distinguish, I think then for a lot of people, then you can mitigate, being 30, 40 years old or 50 and be like, oh my goodness, midlife crisis. I haven't accomplished anything that I wanted to do when I was 20 years old, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, one of the things that it comes back to with me is even being competitive, and a lot of times in a lot of situations, being competitive can actually be seen as like a negative thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think a lot of it, kind of goes along with more how you're going about things rather than exactly what you're doing. And like for me, I know I'm extremely competitive in literally everything I do for really no other reason than I just like to be, and it's fun for me to compete. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, making sure that we're not seeing people and, judging what they're doing, if it just for the fact and putting all of it into one bucket, right? Like just because you're competitive doesn't mean that you have to bring other people down to win.
For sure.
You're competing just to compete and to show that you're the best, it doesn't have to be a negative thing. But if you're, backstabbing and tearing the other people down, then, that's when it can become negative. And so there's just so much gray area in all of that.
Definitely. And I love how you alluded to that notion of competition, because again, competition when it's healthy is beautiful. And as you were saying that, Jay, what came to mind is as long as you're competing with old Jared every single time and being better today, then awesome. All the power to you. Be competitive. The minute you start being competitive with other people, and like you said, like bringing them down, stepping on them, hurting to win, or however that looks, that is a very unhealthy version of competition. And the majority of us don't want to participate in that when it involves other people, or at least we don't want to be a bystander of that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And so, just looking at yourself, like, what would you say motivates you? Both, specific things or just in general, right?
Yeah. So, Jared, for me, I would say, back in the day when I was younger, what motivated me was obviously external. I did what I did because you want to be seen, heard, liked, respected. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The coolest kid, top jock, best performer in drama class, whatever it may be, right? You want to be the Joker. And again, like I've talked about this, my mask being athletic and Joker. So for me, it was definitely external at first. And then slowly but surely, I realized it was internal because I just saw the byproduct of me striving for greatness, right? My
Yeah.
self-image, my self-worth, and just realizing like, wow, like I had a different attitude and mindset when it came to a lot of things outside of those two arenas,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got into, it wasn't until actually my first year of culinary school where we had to do a practicum, and my Chef Cam Dobransky. I remember he sat me down. He was like, listen, like the minute that you think you've made it in any arena is when you start your downward spiral.
Okay.
And I remember hearing that and being like, wow. And basically what he was telling me was like, you never make it. Keep learning, keep growing, keep evolving. And that's always stuck with me. And that was
Interesting.
in the realm of like culinary and just being and just knowing that you never make it to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And if you think that you do, well, now you've just started sliding backwards. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And for me, I took that. And then when I went and did my kines degree, I landed on this quote, and I have it. It's stuck with me, dude, all those years. And even now, I have it tattooed on one of my ribs. And it says, aspire to inspire before you expire.
Yes.
And that has just become my mantra, dude. And so for me right now, what motivates me is, dude, I need to become the best version of Nuke
Yeah.
so that I can inspire the next generation, whoever chooses to listen to this wannabe king talk. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then because I know that eventually, and we're talking about this when it comes to death, I know that death is on the table. And so before I go in whatever capacity, let me be the best version of Nuke that I can be so that I can help the next generation be the best version that they can be. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yep.
So for me, that's what inspires me now. Aspire to inspire before I expire. So for me, it's always, hey, how can we be better than we were yesterday? In every area of our life, physically, spiritually, mentally, financially, romantically, business-wise. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Everything.
that desire, that urge pushes me to be around like-minded individuals and then to put myself in rooms where I'm not the smartest one.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that quote?
Yep.
And so I love that. That like iron sharpens iron mentality, that one bad apple ruins the batch mentality, that resonates with me. And so because of that lights a fire in me to want to push the needle better holistically.
Yeah. For sure. And while you were talking, while you were saying all of that, that's where I went back to, the being selfish to be selfless. Right.
Yes, sir.
I feel like I'm not being super clear on it, but mostly just because I'm still trying to figure it out in my mind. So if I'm rambling a little bit, that's why. But,
no, I get it.
Mine is very, very similar. And it's been really recent that I've been thinking about it and really getting some clarity on it, even just in this past week. But I think, like one of my goals is to, inspire others or to be, I don't know the right word, but almost, recognized or admired. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, in all honesty, like that does come from a very selfish place of, that is that's my want for me because it makes me feel good. But
yes,
at the same time, I know that the way I want to do that is more of that inspiring and for having an impact on people's lives, which is selfless in nature, right?
Yes. Oh, dude, I
Yeah.
completely agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah. And so that's been a really interesting one for me. Another really, really cool one that I've come to realize and which has actually helped me out is just more in like a micro sense of things in, day to day staying motivated. I've realized that it's a lot tougher for me to motivate myself, and I'm a lot better when I am responsible or held accountable to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. Like that will
Yep.
keep me going as soon as I know that somebody is relying on me. And it's in my mind that I'm doing it for them.
Yes.
I'm able to stay motivated. And we were actually talking just before we came on of, I'm working through a new business idea right now. And I was struggling to have the motivation just because this is the part I hate most. I hate the beginning. I hate the idea phase. I like it when you actually get into it and I'm actually operating and everything like that. And so to try to hack it and to try something different, basically, I'm using Dea, we both know, as the person that I'm accountable to. And every day I have something that I need to get done, and basically, told him that, I was going to let him know when I had finished those, and asked him if he could hold me accountable. So now I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it because I told Dea that I would. And, for me, trying to hack that and use that of being accountable to others is how I'm trying to stay motivated day to day.
For sure. And there's something powerful in there, because essentially what we're doing is we're tricking ourselves to doing the work, and using the notion of letting someone down fuel us to actually go and do what needs to be done regardless.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I love that because again, being selfish, as you say, using that, like knowing that I don't want to let this person down. Because of that, I will go and do the work.
Yeah.
So it's very like ironic when you look at it from that perspective. And if it works, all the power to you. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's what it takes. You know what I mean? This external motivator to then eventually get the internal motivation going. To get that fire going within us. So that eventually it'll come to a point where, guess what? You won't need Dea word for word checking up on you or him being your accountability partner, because you've got that fire going and you have the kindling going that all is well.
Yeah.
Right? So, dude, I love that, and all the power to you. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah. And so for you, like, what do you do when you lose your motivation?
Yeah, dude, this is something that I constantly struggle with, and it's a great question. Well, I would say for me right now, Jared, like the biggest thing is having like quotes and affirmations that I can go to.
Okay.
Right? That spark why we are doing what we're doing. And so if you were to come to my home right now and you came to like my wall, you would see quotes plastered all over the wall.
Okay.
And it's just affirmations that I believe to be true and that I'm speaking into existence, and that are just refreshers for me, right? Because, when you first set out on a goal of whatever capacity, we're always excited, like, yeah, let's do it. And then guess what? Day like 150, we're like, what am I doing? Do I even want to do this?
Yeah.
What was I thinking? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's in those moments to me where I'm like, okay, this is where the work is. You know what I mean? Yep. It's being consistent and having that fire lit under us, right? To then carry on with the mission. And so one, that's quotes. Two, it's coming back to why we started off in the first place.
Yes.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Coming back to that why, and then answering those questions, those 5W questions, right?
Yeah.
Who, what, where, when, why. I don't know if that was 5 or not, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And and just answering that question, hey, like, do we still want to do this? Why are we doing this? How are we doing, like, so forth and so on, and just getting super clear on that. And
Yeah.
if at any point in time, I'm like, you know what, back then I wanted to do it, and now it's shifted, it's changed. Cool, sweet, pivot, recalibrate, and go from there.
Yeah.
That to me is what it means to work on a goal. It's not so much the goal per se. It's just you striving towards being better than you were yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, go on.
I was just going to say that I love that. And that has been one of the biggest ones for me recently, is just questioning it. It is okay. Like, trying to almost take the emotion out of it and look at it and just go, all right, do I not want to do this right now because it's no longer important to me? Right.
Yep.
Do I not want to do this right now because I don't have the energy and I need a rest? Or do I not want to do it right now because I'm afraid? Right? And
all great questions.
Yeah. And so trying to figure out where the loss of motivation is coming from to help me navigate that.
For sure. And two more things I want to add on there, parallel to that, is also having great people in your life that they know what you want to accomplish, and they're on your team.
Yeah.
So that you can go to them and bounce ideas off them, and they can also keep you accountable. Something that I always talk about when we talk about goals is make sure you have people that are on your team and want to see you win. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're talking about planting apples, don't go and talk to somebody who's planting, you know what I mean? Pineapple.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a disconnect. Now, yes, we're both planting, but it's going to look differently, right? You go and you rub shoulders with people that also plant apples and that have done it better than you.
Yeah.
And you pick their brains and you rub your shoulders with them, because then guess what? They will then help you and guide you and give you tools and be like, dude, when I was there, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I went through the exact same thing. This is how I navigated it. Boom, there you go.
Yeah.
And you've just now told yourself, okay, take a deep breath. This is what it looks like. I'm not crazy. I'm not out to lunch. Cool. You see what I'm saying?
For sure. Yep.
That's one. Do you have anything to say to that, or?
No, I love that. No, keep going.
Okay. And then the other thing is, I think for a lot of us sometimes we're too quick to want to be motivated and have that kindling blazing, right? Just like any fire, it takes time for those coals and all the kindling to take place, right? And sometimes I think for a lot of us is, I've got a goal. Okay, boom. Why don't I have results? You know what I mean? Within, like, what's the saying? Our expectations are unrealistic, right?
Okay.
On how quickly we get results.
Yeah.
And what comes to mind always, I tell people, listen, you have literally, like, when you set or pick a goal, you literally have the seed in your hand. You haven't even planted it yet.
Yeah.
So how can you expect results? You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
How can you expect fruit from this seed when you haven't even planted it yet?
Yeah.
So therefore, be kind to yourself and give yourself time and space to then allow this thing to grow and nourish and establish its roots. Yeah. Before the tree comes up and bears fruit. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so I don't think enough people give themselves enough time. And if that's the case, you know what? And this is why I say, parallel yourself with people that have planted apples, let's stick with apples, that have planted apples, that you can ask them, hey, what is the timeline on this? Realistically, best case scenario. So right? So then guess what? Jared's going all in for a year, and I'm going to exhaust every resource, every tool. I'm not going to doubt myself for a year, and we'll see what happens. Yeah. And then coming out of that year, then you can make a decision. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Hey, do I still want to do this? Is this something I'm passionate about? Why am I doing this? Da-da-da-da-da. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Up until then, to me, you can't ask yourself those type of questions yet.
Yes,
Does that make sense?
for sure. Yeah. And I've been pondering. So
Yeah, yeah.
you, so for me, like I have a little bit of my own take on the when planting apples kind of thing.
Yeah, go for it.
So for me, I think I think it's very important to realize the advice that you're given, that you're
Yep,
getting, right? And
yep,
I also think it's really important to look for varying different places to get that advice. And so what I mean by that is just kind of again diagnosing where that advice is coming from.
of
And
course.
and so if you're looking to plant apples, like somebody who's been planting apples their entire life is going to give you a lot of value.
Yep,
But you also have to look and say, okay, they've only ever planted apples in their life. And
yep,
so, though that is the lens that they are giving you the advice through. And
yes.
so, I'm going to also go talk to somebody that only planted pineapples their whole life, using your example. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And, you know, even though they might not know anything about planting apples,
yep,
they have an outside perspective that may be useful to you.
for
Right.
sure.
So, getting those multiple different points of view. And, for me, one that's come up and is, people that can really, really almost take the emotion out of it and show you your blind spot of what you're missing, and I think the different people are more important at different times. And so, sometimes you might need that like kick in the ass, which one person might be great at you. Sometimes you might need that super comforting, just like encouragement. Right. And
Yep.
so I think that really depends where you're at in each situation too, and why it's so important to have such a wide variety of people.
Okay. Challenge.
Yeah.
Challenge,
Yeah.
if I may, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying, and what I would caution, and I'll agree with you. We're taking perspective from, let's just say, the pineapple planter, right?
Yeah.
If he's successful, because the example I'll use, because I know, and I'm going to say this on purpose, because I know you manage restaurants, right?
Okay.
I want to open a restaurant. I'm going to come to Jared, who's opened a successful restaurant, who knows what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
I'll take perspective from him. Why would I go to somebody who's failed at opening a restaurant? Do you see what I'm saying? They're not going to give me, yes, I get it. Their perspective might be valid, and they might give me some blind sides. But to me, I'm like, you haven't been successful in that arena. So then why would I take advice from you? Because the advice you're going to give me may or may not put me in the same boat as you. And I don't want to not have a successful restaurant. So I'm going to listen to Jared and what he says. And if Jared says go left, I'm going to go left. I'm not going to question that. Even if the other gentleman says go right. Because the last thing I want to do is be told to go left by Jared. This other guy gives me his perspective to go right. And now I'm sitting here being like, which one do I listen to?
Yeah.
And for a lot of people sometimes, dude, that's what happens.
Yeah. Now, a little bit of a rebuttal.
Okay, good.
So now, one thing I think that has really helped me in my life is I've always, taken that saying, learn from your mistakes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the people that have failed at it,
yeah,
I do agree. I think that, getting that advice from the person who has succeeded is probably more helpful, but I also think that it can be super important to talk to those people who have, quote unquote, failed. Because even if you're able to dissect that information yourself, right? And if you're able to learn from their mistakes, and they may not see it as a mistake, but if you're able to hear, listen to them and hear them and see what they did so that you can avoid those landmines, that can also be super helpful.
Hey man, then all the power. And now, Jared, this is the thing. We're assuming, and I don't like assuming, but we're assuming then, Jared, that the majority of people can sift through, right?
Yeah.
Can sift through people's opinions and their experiences and pull out the gems for themselves.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? We're
Yeah,
making a huge assumption then.
And that is one thing that I came to realize a while ago now, is that for whatever reason, naturally, I've always been really good at that.
Okay.
And so I've always kind of, filtered the information that I receive. And,
there you go.
Sometimes in a good way and sometimes in a bad way. But,
yep.
I do realize that is something that I was gifted with. I very much pull from the things that I like and immediately discard the things that I don't like.
Case in point, Jared, and that's what it is, being able to filter. Because how many people know how to filter and disseminate good information from bad information?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
True.
Healthy perspective from unhealthy perspective.
Yeah.
So off that notion, I would agree with you. Take both the left, the right, the up, the down perspective, and then distill it and make it your own and make a conscious, healthy decision forward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
If not, my encouragement would be, if you want to plant apples, go to the guy who's been doing it for 30 years because he knows what he's talking about.
For sure.
Good dialogue.
Sure. And
good dialogue.
Yeah, no, of course. And on your second point there, it's actually something that I completely agree with, and something I actually had written down was, a big focus of mine the past, say 2 or 3 months has been self-compassion.
Yeah.
Right. And instead of falling into the cycle of losing my motivation and then being mad at myself because I feel like I'm no longer motivated, and then becoming less motivated because I'm frustrated with myself that I'm not motivated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, just taking it every once in a while and going, it's okay, you're not motivated today.
Totally.
Right.
Dude.
And maybe you just need a break. Right.
Yes.
Or even straight compassion of like, you're scared of this right now, and you're worried about what people will say, or you're worried that you'll fail. And today you're just not motivated, and that's okay. And, we'll check back in tomorrow.
Totally.
And, keeping track of that. And if you find that you fall into that state for a prolonged period of time, like, okay, well, maybe now it's time to try something different. Maybe now you need that jolt. Maybe now you need that kick in the ass, or, that external compassion that, invigorates you and, makes you feel less bad about it. But, just, on a day-to-day basis of just being easier on myself has actually made me more motivated.
Amen. I love that, dude. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And so a big one that I've been thinking about too is, the notion of maybe motivation is sometimes misclassified or defined improperly.
For sure.
Right.
Go on.
And so where this one came from, actually, I was listening to a podcast, one of Gary Vee's podcasts, and somebody had called in and brought up the fact that, there was a lot of articles and that have come out during the quarantine here of saying it's okay if you're not productive while in quarantine.
Yeah.
And, kind of having it as a polarizing topic. But then through the conversation, I started to realize, well, there's different, there's different definition of what's being productive and what's being motivated.
For sure.
And I think a lot of times people only think of motivation in a professional sense.
Yep.
Right. I'm motivated to make money. I'm motivated to, get that promotion. I'm motivated to start that business. But then going back and realizing, though, you can still be productive and still be motivated by realizing that you need quality rest, or you are really going to work on your mental health, or being really motivated to work on your spirituality, whatever it might be. And there's the difference between, not doing anything and motivated in the sense that we usually think about it.
Dude, I completely agree. And this is why, for example, we say, and this is totally separate, but with King of Hearts, like, is there a willingness to reimagine these words that we've grown up with for so long, right? And case in point, that's what it sounds like you just communicated there. Is there a willingness to reimagine what that word productive means, what that word motivated means, right? Because during this season that we're in of COVID, it is this could be very, like, for myself, it's been a very productive time, right? And yes, it hasn't looked, my career moving forward or my financial budget increasing, for example, right? But it's definitely been productive in the sense of, man, like, I've crushed a handful of books. You know what I mean?
Yep.
My meditation game is the best it's ever been in years.
Yeah.
Holistically, like, I've just allowed stillness into my life and just allowed myself to really sit and ponder some things. Could I have done that pre-COVID? Yes, maybe. Had I done it up to that point? No. So therefore, COVID has given me this time to be productive in other areas that I may or may not have been lacking previously. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep, for sure.
And I think, and this is the other thing I want to add to that, Jared, to what you said really well, is who are we comparing it to? Do you see what I'm saying? Are we comparing it? Like, am I looking at you, Jared, and be like, man, Jared's put out X amount of podcasts and done this, and I'm sitting here, just doing meditation. Woe is me. Like, I suck. Yeah. Well, of course. I can't compare Nuke to Jared. That's not fair. And that's where that piece of compassion comes in once again.
Yeah.
So I think people need to, like, take a step back, take a deep breath, and be like, what am I comparing my version of success, my version of productivity to?
Yeah. Yeah. And realizing just how different it is for everybody.
Yes.
And how much there is that you don't see.
Yep. Exactly.
Right?
How much you don't see. Truth.
Yeah.
Truth.
Because, like, even using that example of, you look at somebody who, they put out all this stuff, it seems like, but for all like, that could be all that they do.
Yep.
Right. And okay, here's an hour out of my day, or, like a couple hours out of my week. And it looks like, oh, I'm doing all this work and, they're doing so much and, I need to do more. But you could also see somebody that it looks like nothing is happening from the outside, but on the inside, they're slowly repairing their mind constantly, even if it's subconsciously, or if, they're just being mindful about every single thing that's going on in their lives. And you don't see that, but that person can be 10 times, 100 times more, more productive than the person than showing those external, things, whatever they might be.
Preach, brother, preach. Well said. I love that.
Yeah. Awesome. We touched on a ton of different things today, but
I
know. But is there anything else that you want to say or talk about in regards to motivation?
I think just lastly, what I like to say is just for people to be compassionate with themselves and to not always be looking outside of yourself and judging yourself on other people's accomplishments or what they're doing, and just to be willing to look inside yourself to be like, hey, how can I be better for myself today? What can I do to be better than I was yesterday? That's it. That's it. And if you can do that day in, day out, rain or shine, man, you will slowly cultivate this self-awareness, this self-efficacy, this what is it? This burning desire inside of you to just execute daily. And and it won't be based on what other people are doing. And if it is, which is also a beautiful place to be, just let it be people that are that are empowering you and giving you a perspective of like, hey, I can do that too. Right?
Yep. Yep.
Not a perspective of, oh, I can't do that, or it's just, or it just puts you in a bad headspace.
Yeah.
So that would be my 2 cents, sir.
I love that, and actually it triggered something in me which I love. And I was actually talking about when you're talking about breaking it down and day by day, how can I get better today?
Yep.
It reminded me, I was watching a clip from Joe Rogan's podcast.
Okay.
And he had this previous Navy SEAL on there, and talking about Hell Week.
Yep.
Right. And it's like the hardest week during the whole training process. And something that he said really stuck with me. He went, the people that succeed are able to keep their world small. And what he meant by that was, when you look at Hell Week, it's the toughest week on the course. I think it's 5 or 6 days where, you get 2 hours of sleep the whole time. Right.
Wow.
But he said the one thing is that they need to feed you every about 6 hours.
Okay.
And he said, so the people, if you start thinking, oh, I have another 4 days, I have another 5 days worth of this, like it's never going to end, I'm only on day 3, those people usually quit.
Okay.
But the people that are able to keep their world small and they focus on, I need to make it to my next meal.
Yes.
Right. I'm not thinking about anything past that. I'm not thinking about anything that's happened. I'm thinking about what I'm doing right now, and I need to make it to my next meal, and they keep their world small.
Love that.
To get through it. And so I just saw that, like, I think yesterday or the day before, and it's really stuck with me. And it's one thing that I really want to try too, of when I'm starting to get stressed out, when I'm starting to run all of those scenarios in my head and look too far out, and all of a sudden it becomes overwhelming. And that motivation is just gone because there's so much. There's an entire mountain to climb.
Yeah.
And bringing it back of, I need to focus on what I'm doing today. I need to focus on this next step, whatever it might be. So,
preach.
Yeah.
Preach. Well done. Well said, sir.
Thank you.
Keeping your world small.
Your world small.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, man, as always, it was amazing having you on.
Thank you, sir.
I'm looking forward to our next chat. All right.
Yeah, man. So we meet again.